Friends, we gather together this morning to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Michael Hersh. Your presence here means so much to the family, so many of you coming to pay respects to Michael and the family and to express your solidarity and your love with the family. This means so much to all of us. Adonai ma'adam v'teda ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are like a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, "Return, you mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. From Psalm 1, the first of the Bible's 150 Psalms, describes for us in many different ways how we should live our lives to achieve contentment and happiness. The very first word of the very first psalm is ashrei, which means happiness in an intensive form. So immediately the psalmist announces that he or she or they, perhaps many poets, are going to tell us that through the complexities and the difficulties and the tragedies of life, there are ways in which we can reach for optimism, that we can reach for buoyancy, and especially as we go through our days with one another, the possibility for contentment, for satisfaction, is enlarged. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor taken the path of sinners, nor joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose foliage never fades, and whose fruit always flourishes. Before we read together and recite the 23rd Psalm, I want to make a comment or two about this quite astonishing poem. There are two ways in which a piece of art can gain a reputation. Either by having an extraordinary publicist who puts the word out so that many people over time can see it. Psalm 23 had a good publicist, the editor who entered it into the book of Psalms. But the second way is because a piece of art deserves its reputation through its complexity, through its coherence, through its reach. There are 55 words in Hebrew of the 23rd Psalm. Whenever we have an uneven number in a list, there's always a middle item. The middle word is word 28, and that word is atah. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This is the psalmist's promise that in dark days, God is with us in one way or another. But we know from our tradition that our own obligation is to walk in the ways that God walks. Just as God promises to be with us in difficult times, so are we enjoined to be an atah to the mourners, a partner, who, without having adequate words, and what words are adequate, we do have resources. And the resources are ourselves. Again, thank you for being here, and I hope and know that over the days and weeks to come, you will continue to reach out to the family, putting your arms around the mourners, expressing solidarity, and letting them know that life is good and there are prospects for better times without forgetting what has befallen them. If you know the psalm, recite it with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Kohelet, the author of the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. When I met with Michael Hersh's adoring family a couple of days ago and asked them to describe their son and husband and father and grandfather and brother-in-law to me, they came forth with a cascade of adjectives that begins, but just begins, to tell us the kind of person Michael Hersh was. Here's what they told me: that he was kind and honest and caring, always looking for ways to help others, always supportive and compassionate, a good listener, filled with dedication and integrity, and a person who, in his quiet though determined way, always made people feel comfortable. And let us pause to notice how many times in what I have just said the word always occurs. Always suggests consistency, devotion, and love. This was Michael Hersh. And Michael had so many passions for the people he loved and for the activities that absorbed him. Not just for a moment here and there, but always, there's that word again, throughout his life. Let me then proceed to describe some of Michael's many enthusiasms and commitments. First, his work. Michael, from his very earliest years, had a deep curiosity about how things work. And so he was always, even as a young boy, taking things apart to see what made them tick. And this led naturally to his growing interest in auto mechanics and to the career to which he was devoted for many decades. And Michael's intelligence and determination led to his thriving business, through which he was able to help myriads of customers over the years. Indeed, Michael's reputation for expertise and for his thoroughly honest business practices led people to come to him for work on their cars, and even when they were thinking about buying a car, especially a used car. People would say, ask Michael before you buy that car. And not only was he always willing to give people his honest appraisal, but he always, and this tells us something else about Michael, he always got a kick out of driving those cars, testing them on the streets and on the highways, figuring things out, and then deploying his accumulating knowledge in the interest of his customers and his friends. And how often were his customers also his friends? And speaking of friends, Michael befriended so many people and in so many areas of his life. He and his buddies would meet most Saturday mornings for breakfast together at yours truly. He and you, Maureen, had your motorcycle group with whom you traveled the country together to places in Ohio and Iowa and Michigan and Vermont and Tennessee and Savannah. So many wonderful times together. At first, as you told me the other night, you were skeptical about participating in this motorcycle venture. But once you tried it, you found that you loved it. Perhaps part of that transition from skepticism to participation was Michael's own laid-back manner, which enabled you to reach your own decision. And then there were those annual, and I never heard this phrase before, maintenance days. Maintenance days at the beginning of the bike season, during which his friends and fellow bikers would come to your house to prepare their bikes for yet another glorious travel season of riding together. And so here again, Michael had something that he deeply enjoyed, and through it, he cultivated both rich and satisfying friendships, as well as the activities that made these friendships so durable and so wonderful. A part of what made Michael such a good friend was his capacity to always be there for others. And so it is not surprising that his and Maureen's bike was always at the back of the line. Why? So that they could be sure that everyone in front of them was okay. And as a sign of his devotion to his friends and their devotion to him, Michael evidently had 500 names in his contact list. And then there is Michael Hersh, the family man. Now, one of the first things I heard when I spoke with the family the other evening was that Michael was the pillar of the family. How so? I asked. Well, because Michael was always ready, again, in his quiet but determined and loving way, always ready to step in to help anybody out with just about anything at all. If you were sick, he was there to do what he could for you. And you didn't have to ask him for help. He was there on his own. And now I quote his family. You couldn't stop him. And so if something was broken or needed reinforcement, Michael was there to do what he could. To do stuff is how his family put it. Just a minute, he would say. I've got the tools in my car. I'll be right back. And he loved to share experiences with his family, going trick-or-treating with his kids, grandkids. And this is how one of you put it, having as much fun, if not more, than the kids did. Watching cartoons with his children and grandchildren was another of his joys. And sharing a water slide or going bowling or fishing together. And evidently, and I hope I have this right, He built the coolest maze for a marble run for them. Indeed, in all these and many more activities, Michael displayed his childlike qualities in his ability to have fun and to experience the joy of being with those he loved. He was, you said, Maureen, something of a kid himself, who would playfully fight his children over a toy or over what cartoon show to watch. We can almost feel the joy he felt, can't we? He was indeed a proud father and grandfather and uncle. In addition, he was, as you said, Kenny, the other evening, a great brother. And as an example of this, you pointed out how your businesses were next to each other and how both of you would regularly come to bounce ideas off one another. Another example of Michael's capacity for always being ready to do what he could for others, quietly and without bravado. And once he actually asked, if we can believe it, to accompany family members for a girls' pedicure day. And evidently he actually once got one. Indeed, Michael, the family man, never wanted to miss out on anything. As for Michael's attitude toward life, he was always a glass half full person, always optimistic, always encouraging others, always getting pleasure out of whatever he engaged in. And as you said, Laura, because of his optimistic, can-do attitude, because of his consistent encouragement, you yourself always felt that there wasn't anything you couldn't do. Michael was survived by his wife of 46 years, Maureen, by his son Jeremy and his daughter Laura, by his daughter-in-law Jackie and his son-in-law Ari, his mother Judy, and his grandchildren Violet, Pepper, Sloan, and Dresden, by his brothers Ken and Alan, and his sister Mindy, his brother-in-law Ian, his sisters-in-law Michelle and Alyssa and Ruth, and by his nieces and nephews Corey and Abby, Darian, Rosie, Haley, Aiden, Dustin, and Julia, and by many beloved cousins and friends. He was predeceased by his father, Ted. Michael Hersh was simply a wonderful person. In his quiet and quietly determined way, he touched the lives of so many people, and in so many ways, and over such a long period of time. Those who deeply admired and who deeply loved him will never forget him. Zichrono livracha. The memory of Michael Hersh will always be our blessing. Amen. I now want to call on two family members who are going to reflect on the life, the qualities, the accomplishments of Michael Hersh. First, his sister Mindy.
I'll start by talking about Mike's first and longest relationship, the one he had with his mother. Out of her 4 children, my brother Michael was the only one who never left. Ken went off to Ohio State for a few years. Mike was a devoted son, a wonderful role model to his younger siblings, and someone who always showed up, fixing things, helping out, always nearby. He was gentle, sweet, and demonstrated great concern for his mom. He also worked a lot, which might explain why all of Mom's doctors and caregivers know Maureen. They were a great tag team. But the best thing they ever did was make her a grandmother at the age of 45. Mike and my parents had a beautiful connection. He took care of them in so many ways, like maintaining their cars and plowing their driveway, and they were always ready to lend a hand, especially to babysit. Friday nights were sacred. Jeremy and Laura at their house all day, and then family Shabbat dinners. My mom loved cooking Mike his favorite foods: chopped liver, shlishkas, jelly blintzes, and more recently, she was thrilled to see him request fish sandwiches, strawberries and whipped cream, or a chocolate banana milkshake from Tommy's. Because a Jewish mother shows love by feeding you, and Mike was very, very loved. My three brothers, they had a great relationship with each other. The growing up part definitely wasn't smooth sailing. But as adults, they were supportive and genuine friends. It helped that they had many of the same interests in common. Alan would say motorcycles, cars, guns, and barbecue. And they all loved sci-fi, auctions, and accumulating stuff. Ken spent the last 7 years working 500 feet away from Mike's shop. This allowed for endless opportunities to share business ideas, commiserate, grab lunch, and stay at work late, helping each other on projects. Ken and Michelle's wedding anniversary was 2 days earlier than Mike and Maureen's, so they celebrated this together many times, as well as frequent outings to dinners and the Broadway series. Mike was certainly an invested brother, brother-in-law, and uncle. I came into Mike's life when he was 11, and some of my earliest memories were visiting him at work, which was pretty cool because he worked at the Richmond Mall movie theater. Since it was the 70s, I also remember watching TV shows like Star Trek and Land of the Lost with my brother and fighting for the cereal box prizes. And who could forget the Life cereal commercial with, "Hey, Mikey, he likes it." So that was our family's pet name for him, Mikey. When I was 11, he brought me a big sister, Maureen. Mike had a beautiful 1968 Corvette that he'd fixed up, and Maureen had a Camaro. What could be cooler than that? And actually, Maureen told me that their first date happened because he offered to bang out a dent in her Camaro. True story. And then she wanted to thank him and invited him out to dinner. I became an aunt at 13, and since I had no younger siblings, I cherished every minute with Jeremy and Laura. Mike also introduced me to some important life experiences, like my first beer, water skiing on Lake Erie, and of course, my first car. And then later teaching me how to drive stick shift on the Jetta the same day I had to drive it back to college. As you can imagine, there are a lot of car stories, and I bet 80% of you took your car to Mike at some point. Yes? Here's one story that really captures who he was. I needed an inexpensive car on very short notice when I moved to New York City in 1990, and Mike made it happen, since he was aware my cousin had a car to sell. When it broke down on the New York Thruway, he drove all the way to the state border with his tow truck to rescue me, since AAA could not take me beyond that point. Only for us to discover later there was absolutely nothing wrong, just a hidden kill switch in the glove box we didn't know about. That was Mike. No matter what, he showed up and he stayed until things were okay. He worked for well over 50 years, built his own business, and earned the trust of so many as an honest mechanic. Life threw him some curveballs, but that never stopped him from trying his best and taking time to have fun. Mike had so many diverse friends because he was genuinely interested in people and their lives. He also had a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, and I'm grateful for it. It pushed him to travel, to learn, and to experience life fully. He continued to build a wonderful life with Maureen after raising incredible kids and becoming a proud papa. Mike was super engaged with his 4 grandchildren, and I'm so glad he got to see his oldest have her bat mitzvah just 6 months ago. Jeremy becoming a veterinarian and being local was absolutely perfect for someone with all those dogs. Growing up, Mike's pets were in cages, but once he married Maureen, that changed. Over 45 years, they loved 10 dogs, often 2 at a time. From Samantha to their now 5-year-old Bella, they were his kids with paws. Mike thought Laura's career was pretty cool. It sometimes granted them backstage access to meet her celebrity clients, which he definitely appreciated. And he never missed a chance to fly out to California and visit her family, even when he wasn't feeling well. I believe he once passed a kidney stone on one of those long flights. Mike cherished every visit, no matter what. Mike also showed up to celebrate all of my family's milestones in Connecticut. And once he made a solo motorcycle trip out for a weekend in late August. That felt amazing. I loved introducing him to my friends and say that he rode out from Ohio on his bike. A few years ago, he helped my son, the mechanical engineer, perform his first oil change at Expert Tech Automotive. I am glad they had that connection. I'm really going to miss Mike's phone calls and hearing him say, "For sure. Oh, for sure." The past 18 months were incredibly difficult. His family might even describe it as a nightmare. But Mike didn't complain. He just kept going. He handled it the same way he handled everything, with quiet strength, doing his best, and plowing through. The last few weeks were the worst. Those who sat by his side felt the anguish and terrible unfairness, but there was beauty that shined through as well. You could see that Mike was defined by love, the kind that was visible, constant, and real. And it wasn't only from his family. He had many friends that loved him because he was such a good friend to have. Mike, my oldest big brother and August birthday buddy, thank you for every rescue, every repair, every time you showed up without hesitation, and of course, the bonus family you gave us. There is so much I admire about you and so much you've taught me. I am certain that your legacy is secured in your children, grandchildren, nephews, and nieces, and for that, I am so grateful.
And now Mike's daughter, Laura.
Just really lovely to see so many of you here today, some people that I haven't seen for 30 years or more, so it's been just really beautiful. As Roger said, for those who don't know me, I am Laura, Mike's favorite daughter, and Jeremy's over there, his favorite son. And for years we would joke that in the case of the zombie apocalypse, you should head to mom and dad's because Michael Hersh could make it all happen. This man has multiple generators, an arsenal of guns, and who knows what else from years of going to his happy places, which were auctions and flea markets, pawn shop pop-ins. And back in the day, Radio Shack would give him boxes of broken electronics, and he'd fix them and then sell them. There might be still some of these boxes in our basement, so if anybody needs an old phone or a VCR. Dad loved to learn how everything worked. He would enjoy explaining the mechanics to you if you were patient enough to listen. And acts of service were his love language. Going over to Jeremy's to help install a new dishwasher, or my husband Ari and I we'd have a list for him when he and Mom would come to visit us. He would make sure of it too. He'd be asking us about it weeks in advance, like, make sure you have that list for me. It's like you couldn't even, you're like, okay, I guess I will do this. It would just be like, it's fine, just wait. Dad's going to be here in 4 weeks, so we'll just wait. And because this man he just couldn't sit around. So he had boundless energy, and he needed to keep busy at all times. And even when we went on these family vacations, as kids, he was always up at the crack of dawn, like ready to go. And he didn't want to miss out on anything, as Mindy said, anything the location had to offer. When we used to drive down to Florida for vacation, Dad would set up the station wagon for me and Jeremy. He would have the back seats laid flat. He'd put a blow-up air mattress back there, and he'd hook up one of those TVs with the VCR player. And Jared and I would just be rolling around, back there. This is like the late 80s, early 90s, so no seatbelts. But we'd be watching cartoons for nearly, 20-hour trip. And I'm sure it made it easier for everyone. I imagine that, he liked listening to them too, because as you've heard, he loved his cartoons. Dad always had a childlike whimsy, really curious, always down to have fun. And he'd be the one to take you down the water slide you were scared about. And he continued that with Violet and Pepper. And when Jer and I were young adults back home from college, watching Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, Dad was up for joining us on our 2 a.m. excursion to go to White Castle, because we all just had that craving. And completely sober, all of us, literally just wanting tiny burgers at 2 a.m. Another favorite memory I have is when Mom, Dad, Jer, Jackie and Violet, me, Ari, and Sloan, we all went on a vacation to South Carolina. Sloan was about 15 months old at the time, and Violet was like 4. We all stayed in this beautiful house together. And after we finally got the girls to bed, the adults played Cards Against Humanity. Have you ever played that game with your parents? Or imagine poor Jackie and Ari playing it with their in-laws. Anyway, Dad was laughing so hard, like the kind of red-faced, barely breathing, tears streaming down your face kind of laughter. I feel like I could probably count how many times I saw him do that in my life, and that one was so special because we all got to see it. I'm so grateful for all the family vacations we continued as adults. Jeremy, Violet, and a very pregnant Jackie, and my parents and Grandma came to LA a couple months after Dresden was born, and we had just such a lovely time being together. We also all had an amazing time in Chautauqua, all of us, and thanks again to Tommy for letting us borrow his boat and stay at his place for many years. And on the most recent trip, he took Sloan and Violet tubing, and Dresden loved to sit on his lap while he drove the boat. And Dad certainly loved his vehicles, whether on land or sea. And many will remember his, I think it was 1968 Buick Skylark convertible. He took such great care of it, and we'd be in like every community parade. We'd have like council members sitting in the car with us, like waving to people on the side. And one time we had like Mr. and Miss Pee-wee pageant kids, and they'd be like throwing the candy to the parade goers and just hitting Dad in the back of the head. Like they just couldn't make it. The whole time he's driving, he just like wouldn't care because he had the patience of a saint. And when Mom and Dad taught me to drive, parallel parking, going on the freeway, those were his territory. He's the one to unravel your knotted necklace or walk you through replacing your AC filter on your car. He would ship the filter out to me in LA, and I just walk me through it. I think we'd be like so proud, both of us be so proud. And speaking of, Jeremy and I were so proud of them for making such a beautiful group of friends later in life. That's so rare. This was after Jeremy and I were in college and they were empty nesters. They made this gorgeous group of friends, and so many of you obviously are here. We joke about their social lives being just more so than ours. We'd be like, where are they? They're never around. They're always out. I'd call Jeremy and just be like, where are they right now? And he's like, oh yeah, they biked up to Vermont with their motorcycle crew. It's like, oh yeah. Seriously, it was so amazing, and we just love those friends. I'm so grateful that they had so many adventures. I'm grateful also for Dad's stubbornness, which he clearly passed down to me. And I think it just really came from a place of just being so sure things were meant to work out in a certain way and being so determined to make it happen. And he would. He always would. And I love him for that and for everything else. Thank you.
O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody, and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all of life's mysteries. As you are able, I invite you to rise now for the El Mole Rachamim. El Mole Rachamim shochein bam romim, hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, Im Kadoshim Utahorim Kazohar Kiyamazirim et Nishmat Raphael ben Avraham Shalach Laolamo Bala Rachamim Yestireo V'Sefer Kanafav Laolamim V'Yitzror Bitzror HaChayim et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'Yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'Nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Michael Hersh, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say together, Amen. You may be seated. I want to announce that the family of Michael Hersh will receive friends today after our interment service at Temple Emmanuel at 4545 Brainerd Road, and they will receive friends until 7 o'clock this evening. On behalf of the family, once again, we feel moved by your presence here, by your attentiveness, and by the warm feelings that we all feel. Thank you for being here. Our service will continue now at the Lakeview Cemetery.
very quick, not at the lights so much.